On the evening of our anniversary, my wife decided to spend the night celebrating her ex-lover's birthday instead, dismissing my reaction as unreasonable. Evening of our anniversary, my wife decided to spend the night celebrating her ex-lover's birthday, instead dismissing my reaction as unreasonable. "If this keeps up, we should just get a divorce," she said. In the past, those words would have devastated me. I would have felt like every day longer I give her more. She froze, and clearly not expecting that reaction. When Lucy finally returned home, cheerful and carefree, I was throwing away the untouched food I had prepared. The previous night had been our wedding anniversary, and she had suggested earlier that celebrating alone together would be boring. She proposed inviting friends over instead. Wanting to make the evening special, I had taken the day off to shop for groceries, clean the house, arrange the living room, and cook an elaborate meal. But as I waited all evening, no guests came, not even my wife. I discovered where she had gone through social media. She was at Lucas's birthday party. His birthday had already been celebrated just a month prior. One photo showed him with a dab of frosting on his nose and someone wearing a wedding ring identical to mine playfully pinching his cheek. The caption read, "Someone insists on celebrating my birthday on the 18th of every month. It's amazing to feel so cherished." Lucy glanced at the steak I had just thrown away and said, "If you can't cook well, don't waste food." In the past, I might have argued, demanding to know why she had abandoned me on our anniversary to be with him. But this time, I stayed quiet and resumed cleaning up the remnants of the evening I had prepared. Lucy suddenly pointed to a takeout box she had brought home. "Nathan, I brought you some cake," she said. It was her usual strategy, offering me treats whenever she thought I was upset, assuming food could fix everything. I looked at the cake, realizing it was a leftover from Lucas's party. Who packs a birthday cake in a takeout box? "Have some, babe," she added before heading to the bathroom. "I'm going to shower." She disappeared. I continued cleaning, throwing out the trash and arranging the flowers on the table. Her phone lit up with a notification. Lucy always kept her phone on silent when she came home, a habit that had long since stopped surprising me. The message displayed on the screen read, "Mimi, Lucy, you were so naughty last night. My waist still hurts." I stared at the message, my grip tightening on the scissors I was holding. Lucy stormed out of the bathroom, snatching the phone from my hand. "You're always trying to spy on me, Nathan," she snapped. The scissors slipped and cut into my palm, blood dripping instantly. Lucy barely glanced at the injury, muttering, "You're so careless." Then, reluctantly, she added, "Come on, I'll take you to the hospital." I didn't argue. The wound was deep, and it stung terribly. As we drove, I noticed two new decorations on the dashboard, small dolls of a man and a woman locked in a kiss, with the names Lucy and Lucas engraved on them. Noticing my gaze, Lucy hastily explained, "Lucas said the car looked too plain, so he gave me these as a gift." I pressed the gauze against my hand, keeping my voice neutral. "It's fine." I thought back to when I had placed a figurine on the dashboard shortly after we bought the car. Lucy had thrown it out, calling it impractical and distracting. Seeing my lack of reaction, she glanced at me with a puzzled expression. "You're not mad?" she asked. "What should I be?" I replied evenly, staring straight ahead. I no longer cared about her actions enough to be upset. "I need to catch up on the work I missed today. Let's just get to the hospital quickly." Lucy noticed the blood soaking through the gauze and sped up. Just before we reached the hospital, her phone rang. She hesitated, Glancing at me nervously, but seeing my calm expression, she answered, "Baby, my back hurts so much I can't move. It must be from last night. You need to come help me," the voice on the other end said. Although the call wasn't on speaker, her voice was loud enough to hear. I turned my gaze to the window, pretending I hadn't heard. Lucy ended the call, then pressed the accelerator, taking a sharp turn toward Lucas's place. When we passed a pharmacy, she abruptly stopped, ran inside, and returned with a tube of massage cream before heading straight to his apartment. When we arrived, she quickly got out of the car. "I'll just grab a document. I'll be back in 5 minutes," she said, locking the car behind her. I stayed behind, dizziness from the pain worsening, blood soaked through the bandage, spreading fast. At some point, I lost consciousness. Later, I learned that passers-by had noticed me, smashed the car window, called an ambulance, and rushed me to the hospital. That evening, Lucy came home. I was quietly sipping porridge, pale and exhausted. "Where's my dinner?" she asked, fully aware of my condition but still expecting me to prepare her meal. I didn't look up or respond. I had only ordered food for myself. She noticed the untouched cake on the table. "You didn't eat the cake?" she asked. I muttered weakly. Maybe it went bad after sitting out too long? Seemingly remembering something, Lucy pulled a small gift bag from her pocket. "Here's a new perfume." I finished the last sip of porridge, my lips drained of color. "You can give it to someone else," I said flatly. "I'm allergic to perfume." Lucy froze. Early in our relationship, she had given me perfume, and I had told her then about my allergy. She had been embarrassed at the time, but it seemed she had completely forgotten. I set down the bowl, picked up my phone, and moved to the couch, scrolling through funny videos and laughing softly. Noticing the bandage on my hand, Lucy finally seemed to remember my injury. She reached out, but I instinctively pulled back, accidentally knocking the perfume onto the floor. "Nathan," she yelled sharply, her tone accusatory. "All you had to do was wait a little longer in the car. Was that so hard? I haven't even complained about the window you broke." I remained composed. "How much to fix it? I'll pay," I said. Lucy couldn't hide her sarcasm. "With what you earned? What difference would it even make? You could never be as understanding as Luca. He's younger, but so much more mature." Lucy and I were both 30, while Luca had just finished college, making him 8 years younger. Age had become Lucy's favorite weapon in arguments. In the past, I might have argued back, but this time, I stayed calm and nodded. "You're right," I said, glancing at the clock and realizing it was almost time to meet a friend. Grabbing my bag, I headed for the door. Lucy assumed I was making another dramatic exit and wore a sour expression. "Nathan, now what?" she called after me. To my surprise, she followed me a few steps, a rare shift from her usual dismissive attitude. But when I casually said, "Just heading home to grab something," she stopped and returned to her phone. In truth, I was on my way to meet a friend to discuss my plans for divorce. As I walked, my phone buzzed with a message from Lucy. "Where are you?" I didn't reply. Noticing my concern, my friend asked, "She doesn't usually check in like this when you go out. Do you think she suspects you're considering a divorce?" Calmly, I replied, "Even if she does regret it, would it matter?" My friend shook her head, understanding my resolve. We spent hours going over the details of my decision. I returned home in the early hours of the morning to find Lucy sprawled on the couch, her eyes glued to her phone while the TV played a basketball game. She didn't even look up when I walked in. Ignoring her, I headed straight for the shower. After drying off and turning off the lights, I climbed into bed. Moments later, Lucy entered the room without a word. She wrapped her arms around me and began touching me, but I caught her hand and firmly pushed it away. Annoyed, she turned the light back on. "Didn't you say you wanted a baby?" she asked sharply. For years, whenever I brought up having children, Lucy had dismissed the idea impatiently. Now she was the one bringing it up, and I couldn't help but feel indifferent. "I'm tired," I said, turning onto my side. "I have work tomorrow." The words mirrored the excuse she'd often used on me in the past. Lucy frowned. "You're the one refusing now, so don't blame me later," she snapped before slamming the door and heading to the guest room. For the next several nights, she slept in the guest room, a tactic she often used to manipulate me into seeking reconciliation. In the past, I would have lain awake, eventually giving in. But this time, I stayed unfazed and slept soundly. It was Lucy who tossed and turned, often glancing toward the master bedroom whenever she passed by. "I'm going out to buy breakfast. What do you want?" she asked. "Pastries," I replied simply, relieved when she left. But she didn't return. That afternoon, while eating takeout, I scrolled through an alumni group chat. A classmate, Mark, had posted wedding photos. In every picture featuring Lucy, Luca was clinging to her arm, both of them smiling like they were the only two people in the world. Lucy's call interrupted my scrolling. Her tone was eager, as though she had rehearsed her explanation. "Nathan, I was out getting breakfast and remembered Mark's wedding was today. One of the bridesmaids canceled last minute, so they asked me to step in. I was actually planning to bring you along," she said. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Well, congratulations to him." "Aren't you angry?" she asked cautiously. What should I be?" I replied. There was a long pause on the line, so long I thought the call had dropped. Just as I was about to hang up, Lucy's voice broke the silence. "Nathan, I know things have been tense between us lately, but can we talk when I get home?" she asked hesitantly. I let the silence stretch before answering nonchalantly, "We'll see." Then I hung up without waiting for her reply. That evening, Lucy returned earlier than usual. She hesitated in the doorway, her usual confidence replaced by unease. She was holding a bouquet of flowers, a gesture that felt more like a performance than a sincere attempt to make amends. "These are for you," she said awkwardly. "I know I've been distant. I want to make things better." I accepted the flowers without a word and placed them on the table. The silence in the room was heavy as she shifted uncomfortably, waiting for me to respond. "Nathan," she began, "I've been thinking about us. I want to fix things. I know I've made mistakes, but I still love you." For a moment, I studied her. The woman who had once made me feel cherished now seemed like a stranger. Her words rang hollow, devoid of the sincerity I needed to hear. "Lucy," I said, my voice steady, "do you love me, or do you just hate the idea of losing control?" Her eyes widened slightly, and I could see her mind racing. She opened her mouth to protest, but I raised a hand to stop her. "I've spent years bending over backward to make this marriage work," I continued. "But love isn't about keeping score or playing games. It's about respect, trust, and partnership. Can you honestly say we have that?" She fell silent, her gaze dropping to the floor. "I deserve more than this," I said firmly, "and so do you, but we won't find it together." The finality of my words seemed to hit her like a wave. She looked up, her expression a mix of disbelief and desperation. "Are you leaving me?" she asked. "I'm choosing myself," I replied. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of clarity and peace. There was no anger, no lingering doubt, just quiet certainty that I was making the right decision. Lucy sat down heavily on the couch, staring into the distance. She didn't argue or protest, and I took that as my cue to leave the room. In the bedroom, I began packing a small suitcase. The act felt surreal but liberating. I wasn't running away. I was reclaiming my life. When I emerged with my bag, Lucy was still sitting motionless in the living room. "I'll be staying at a hotel for a while," I said calmly. "We'll figure out the logistics later." As I reached the door, she finally spoke. "Nathan, I didn't realize how much I was losing until now." I paused but didn't turn around. "Sometimes we only appreciate what we had once it's gone," I said softly, then stepped outside, closing the door behind me. The night air was cool, and for the first time in years I felt truly free. The next morning, sunlight seeped through the thin curtains, waking me earlier than I had anticipated. My phone buzzed incessantly on the nightstand, notifications piling up, missed calls from Lucy, texts from mutual friends, and even messages from her family, all urging me to talk things through or give her another chance. Without opening a single message, I silenced the phone and turned to something I hadn't done in years. I made a list. I focused solely on my needs and wants. The first item was clear: meet with a lawyer. The second, find a new place to live. The third, rebuild, step by step. Without giving myself time to overthink, I called the number my friend had recommended during our conversation about divorce. The lawyer's assistant answered quickly, and within minutes I had scheduled an appointment for the following week. It was a small step, but it felt monumental. Later that day, I visited a cafe I used to frequent for quiet afternoons before life had become so tangled. The familiar smells of freshly brewed coffee and the gentle hum of conversation were comforting. I ordered my usual drink and found a spot by the window, letting the familiar atmosphere anchor me. As I sipped my coffee, a voice interrupted my thoughts. "Nathan, is that you?" I looked up to see a familiar face. It was Megan, an old college friend. Her warm smile was a welcome sight. "Wow, it's been so long," she exclaimed, sliding into the chair across from me without hesitation. "How have you been?" For a moment I hesitated. How do you summarize years of heartbreak, disappointment, and the decision to finally walk away? But Megan's kind eyes invited honesty. "I'm starting over," I said simply, the words feeling both weighty and liberating. Her expression softened as she reached across the table to squeeze my hand. "Starting over can be terrifying," she said, "but it can also be the best thing you'll ever do. If you need anything, a person to talk to, help with anything, just let me know." Her sincerity caught me off guard, leaving a lump in my throat. "Thank you, Megan. I mean it." That evening, back in the quiet hotel room, I finally allowed myself to reflect on everything. Lucy's face lingered in my thoughts, not with sadness or longing, but with curiosity. How would she react when she realized I wasn't coming back this time? Would she fight for me? Or had her hold on our relationship already slipped beyond repair? A notification broke my reverie. It was an email from the lawyer's office confirming my upcoming appointment and listing the documents I'd need to gather. Among them were joint financial records, accounts Lucy had always managed. I frowned, realizing this wasn't just going to be an emotional journey, it was a logistical one too. This wasn't only about leaving Lucy, it was about taking back control of everything she had made me feel incapable of handling alone. 2 days later, as I started organizing documents, a message from an unknown number appeared on my phone. "Nathan, I know you've left. I don't blame you, but there's something you should know. Call me when you're ready." There was no name, but the tone felt urgent, almost cryptic. Against my better judgment, I dialed the number. A deep, unfamiliar voice answered on the first ring. "I wasn't sure you'd call," the man said. My name is Adam. I think we need to talk about Lucy." My pulse quickened. "What about her?" Adam hesitated, then spoke with calm intensity. "There are things you don't know, things that could change everything." The air around me seemed to freeze. "What kind of things?" "Need over the phone," he replied. "Can you meet me tomorrow? You deserve to hear the truth." The intrigue left me both anxious and resolute. What could possibly make this situation more complicated? As I hung up, I realized I was stepping into uncharted waters, not just with Lucy, but with the new life I was building. Whatever awaited, I was determined to face it head on. This was no longer about escaping the past. It was about uncovering it. The next day, I met Adam at a quiet downtown cafe. He was tall, with a steady gaze that suggested he had carefully weighed every word he was about to say. Sitting across from him, my heart pounded with a mix of apprehension and determination. "Nathan," he began, his voice low but firm, "you deserve to know what's been going on behind the scenes. I've been in a situation like yours before. Lucy has patterns, habits she repeats with people like Luca and others before him." I leaned in, every nerve on edge. "What do you mean?" Adam unfolded a slim folder and slid it across the table. Inside were photographs, emails, and documents. A collection of evidence exposing Lucy's tangled web of lies. This wasn't just about infidelity. It was a web of financial manipulation, emotional exploitation, and countless broken promises left in her wake. She preys on men who trust too much and give too freely, Adam explained. She crafts this illusion of being the ideal partner, but beneath it all, she's constantly chasing the next thrill, the next conquest. Luca isn't unique to her. He's just the latest. The weight of his words settled over me as I sifted through the evidence he had provided. Every piece of it felt like another puzzle piece falling into place, finally exposing the true image of the woman I thought I had loved. "Why are you telling me all of this?" I asked, keeping my voice even despite the storm brewing inside me. Adam held my gaze. "Because I've watched her destroy too many lives. I couldn't help the others, but I can help you walk away stronger. And if you're ready, you can stop her from doing this to anyone else." That evening, as I returned to the hotel, I felt a clarity I hadn't experienced in years. For far too long, I had allowed Lucy to define my worth, my choices, my entire life. But not anymore. Adam's revelations weren't just about Lucy. They were about me reclaiming my strength. I opened my laptop and began composing a message to Lucy. It wasn't emotional or vindictive. It was direct and factual. I outlined the terms of our divorce, the division of our assets, and my decision to move forward without her. I attached a scanned copy of the evidence Adam had shared, making it clear that I was no longer the naive man she thought she could control. I ended the email with one final line. "This is the last time you will hear from me directly. My lawyer will handle the rest." As I clicked send, a profound sense of liberation washed over me. I wasn't leaving quietly, and I certainly wasn't leaving broken. I was leaving on my own terms. In the weeks that followed, the fallout was both predictable and relentless. Lucy tried everything: tearful apologies, angry outbursts, and even thinly veiled threats. But I remained resolute. With Adam's guidance and the steadfast support of my lawyer, I navigated the divorce with a strength I hadn't realized I possessed. Meanwhile, Luca's world began to crumble. The evidence of Lucy's deceit spread quickly within their social circle, leaving him to face the reality of who she truly was. He reached out to me once, asking how I'd managed to endure it for so long. I never replied. That chapter of my life was firmly closed. Months later, I stood on the balcony of my new apartment, gazing out over the city. The chaos of my past was behind me, replaced by the quiet satisfaction of a life I had rebuilt from scratch. I had started a new job, reconnected with old friends I'd lost along the way, and even begun rediscovering passions I had long ignored. As I sipped my coffee, my phone buzzed with a new message. It was from Megan, inviting me on a weekend trip with some of our college friends. I smiled, realizing just how far I had come, not just in distance, but in spirit. Before heading back inside, I took one last look at the horizon. The setting sun bathed the city in a warm, golden light, as if marking the beginning of a new chapter, while the old one faded into the background. For the first time in years, I wasn't merely surviving, I was truly living, and that, I realized, was the most powerful conclusion to my story: a life reclaimed, a spirit unbroken, and a future that was entirely my own.